Welcome to segment 3 of Citizens Forum. Our guest in this segment is Jon Del Sol. We're going to be talking about direct democracy. But just before that, I heard today that there are debates, election debates taking place here in the city. One is being sponsored by a group called BC Sustainable Energy Association. I understand they're calling it an all-candidates debate, but not all candidates are being invited to speak. And I mean, if you're going to say, I think this happens a fair bit. If you're going to have an all-candidates debate, all candidates must be allowed to speak. This is, intolerable. So I hope it doesn't happen anywhere else, including with this particular debate. Jon, your issue is direct democracy. Welcome.
Thank you.
A very important issue. We don't have much of it in Canada. Maybe you can just start by explaining what is direct democracy.
Well, direct democracy is very self-explanatory by itself. And instead of having representative democracy, which means we give our power to a representative to make the decisions for us, and direct democracy, the citizens, vote on referendums for legislation. So the citizens become the legislators. The politicians become only executive administrators, managers, bureaucrats that will manage the different ministries. So direct democracy doesn't really exist in any country right now in the world, but there is more steps towards direct democracy in Switzerland and Iceland, countries where they use a lot more referendums, plebiscites, polls. So I wrote a little poem.
A poem? Oh, okay.
I was inspired, and the Spirit came to me and said, on elections day, we give away our power of legislation to a leader representation, which is basically the same thing that I just explained. Second verse, if we the people propose insights, BC elections, do plebiscites. So
Not bad.
what it means is that if we are ready to participate in initiatives and the political debate, then we have the system on the electoral agencies of the government, like in BC elections or in Canada elections, which is another office perhaps in Ottawa. But they have the technology and the funding to develop a program, a computerized program where people can access from all over the country and put their insights. So that's what it means here when the Spirit guided me to say, if we the people propose insights, in this case it's BC elections, do plebiscites, because I was editing a program on LNG. The MLAs gather here in Victoria to
Well, let's just talk about that LNG. So this is the agreement that Christy Clark signed with Petronas. Now, to me, that was a massive giveaway, not only of our wealth, but to allow the oil and gas industry to poison BC on top of it. I mean, to me, that's what that issue was all about. The government voted to allow this to proceed. I don't think the people of BC wanted this, but we have no voice because there is no direct democracy. And I think what we've got to have at all levels of government is a way so that when there is broad public opposition to anything that any level of government is doing, we should have the ability to relatively easy trigger a vote. And otherwise, we allow corrupt politicians to rule us, and which, as we can see, is very dangerous environmentally, economically, and socially.
Mm-hmm. And we do that every time we go to the electoral box and put our ballot in. We're in fact given legal authority to the majority government right now in BC to do whatever they want. So the discussion is just theater, because in fact, if they have majority, they're going to do whatever they're proposing to do. It doesn't matter that the NDPs would argue back and forth because they don't have a majority. So when we go to the ballot box and put our vote in the ballot box, that's the minute our democracy is finished. We have no more legal right to do anything about it for the next 4 years. When we go and do the same thing again, we put our power to legislate, we give it to them. And then we have 4 years to complain when we don't like it. So the third part of this poem, the third part of this poem is a question actually to us, to all the voters, because now we're focused on the October 19th federal election, not so much in the provincial busy elections or busy dealings and governance. But this is in regards to the October 19th, and says, is questioning, and says, are you ready to initiate by referendum to legislate? It's just a rhyme.
Yes. Are you ready to initiate by referendum to legislate?
Because if we are ready, when we're ready, if we are in my lifetime, when we're ready to legislate, first ready to initiate, because we need an initiative. We need to frame the legislation, and then we can discuss it, and then we can vote on it, and it's legislated by referendum.
Okay. Now, do you think most people in, let's say, British Columbia, just to keep it fairly small, want direct democracy?
That's the question.
I've spoken to people who I thought would be all for direct democracy, which is really just, if the politicians are doing something we don't want, we can stop them. And if they're not doing something we do want, we can make them do it. And yet when I speak to people about direct democracy, I don't get as positive a response as I would have hoped for. People are afraid of direct democracy.
Well, some politicians are afraid of direct democracy, and I think some voters are afraid of having to participate because it consumes some time. It demands reading, studying the issue to have an opinion. And a lot of people don't want to give that time. They're too busy making money, working, and they don't have the time to get involved in politics. They just trust the politician to make the right decision.
Are we that stupid? We trust the politicians? I can't believe it.
That's the question that the poem is saying.
So how do we take those first few steps? I mean, what can we do? Because I believe in direct democracy. I don't want direct democracy on what color they're going to paint, the council room at City Hall, but on important issues, we've got to have the power. The public, the citizens have to have the power. So how do we begin? I guess the first thing is discussion and education and information.
Yeah, well, that's what we need. And I think the first thing, as you say, is information. It's citizens forums, and this is a forum. It's a cyber forum. It's a television forum. Could be in-person meetings on churches or in community centers. We need those forums. We need that information. Second, we need also people to protest against what they don't agree with the government. We need public debates, because in those protests and debates, you find that others learn about the issue. They learn that, oh, I didn't know there was something wrong with it. So third, we need candidates to promise. The candidates on October 19 need to promise to legislate initiative and referendum. In other words, if a candidate does not give me that right, or does not promise that he or she will legislate initiative and referendum, therefore I will not vote for that candidate.
So you have nobody to vote for?
Well, I haven't talked to them yet. Next week I'm going to be talking here with some candidates. But I'm hoping that someone will say yes, because I need that. I need to participate. I don't want to give my power to somebody else to do the right or wrong decision. I want to use my own ability to make decisions. So the last one, let me just finish here with citizens' desire to participate on direct democracy is the most eminent thing. Because if people understand it but are not willing to demand this from the candidates, we lose this unique opportunity on October 19th of saying, I'll give you my vote if you give me the ability to post initiatives and to count my vote in referendums. If we don't demand that, we won't get it. And another 4 years will go for us to complain.
Now, direct democracy, as you said, Switzerland is probably the country that uses direct democracy the most, and I think most people would think that Switzerland, in many ways is, not a bad country. In the United States, states have used direct democracy referendums to legalize marijuana because that's what the public has wanted. And also there's different ways of doing it. You can have direct democracy hard, where there's a vote, and whatever that vote is, that's the end, and the government has to do it. Or there are softer ways of doing it, where the public votes and then it goes to the government and they can discuss it and bring out another idea. There's different ways of doing it. But I think in essence, it's very important that we begin to move towards more. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks very much. A very important issue. It's something we should be discussing, especially at election time. Direct democracy. Thanks for watching this segment.